demonstrated, we are going to do some practices on the ground. We're going to explore our flexibility and work with our legs in general. We're going to give them some workout for strength, but also when we work out the leg muscles, we want to make sure that we don't make them stiffer. So we'll also practice relaxing it. Let's see how we can begin by doing something really simple. We are going to either squat down or sit down on the floor. And in your case, you can do it either on the floor or chair or some other surface like that. Sitting cross-legged seems like a no big deal for most
You
people,
might be able to demonstrate on a chair.
but it's not always easy for everyone. Why is it not easy? Well, because there may be some stiffness in the hips, maybe some tension in the quads. So sitting cross-legged is just one of the simplest things that people do on the floor. Well, maybe lying down on one's back is even easier, and we're going to do that too. What else can we do in terms of just getting into this position? Well, we're learning how to get into it and how to get out of it. And as a matter of fact, it's one of the, purportedly, one of the signs of longevity. Like one Brazilian physician actually came up with a way to assess relatively accurately how long the person will live, depending on how easy it is for them to sit down and, even more importantly, stand up from position is cross-legged on the floor. And how do you stand up? Well, first of all, how do you sit down? This is how I stand up from sitting on the floor. I don't use my hands. If you use your hands, it means that you're not going to live long. Sorry to tell you that. How do you sit down? Well, you either put your legs in this kind of plie position and just squat down and sit down, or maybe do a corkscrew maneuver like this. Corkscrew maneuver means you actually are kind of spiraling down or sitting back up, standing back up. Like this. So it seems like an easy exercise, but it's not that easy for most people. Why is it not easy? Well, most likely a weakness in the legs. Why is there weakness in the legs? Because we don't train them, that's why. What do we need to do to mitigate the weakness? We need to train the legs. How do we train the legs? Well, we have a number of exercises for leg training, and one of the and many of them can be done on the floor. So we'll start with training the legs to become stronger, and then we'll also work on releasing undue tensions in the legs so that it can become more limber. Sitting down on the floor is kind of the most basic thing. Yeah, we actually are going to start with something a little bit more interesting. We're going to bring the feet together and hold on to the feet. When you hold on to the feet, your knees are going to droop down. Gravity is going to pull them down. There are many teachers of martial arts who actually say you need to press the knees down, and some teachers of martial arts actually would stand on the knees of their students with their entire weight pressing down on the knees. Well, no wonder they have huge attrition among the students because they hurt the students. We don't want to hurt ourselves, so what we're going to do is we're not going to press with the knees down. We're going to put the elbows out like this and restrict the ability of the knees to come up. And we're going to create tension in the gracilis muscles. The muscles adductor, so they pull the knees closer to the center line like so. We are going to literally pull the knees upwards against the resistance of the elbows.
Yeah.
What the elbows are doing is they're going to apply a little pressure on the inner thighs. And with your inner thighs, we're going to press upwards against the resistance of the arms. Yeah, interesting idea. And then you're going to get those muscles tired pretty quickly. So slowly release this tension and let it sideways and down. Yeah, it's a very gentle practice. And again, lift the knees up against elbows, press against the elbows. Push upwards with your knees, providing resistance with your arms. And then when your gracilis gets tired, which should take probably a few seconds, slowly release the tension. Just a few more times. Knees pressing upwards against the arms. And then slowly release the tension and let the legs drop. As you're doing this, you will notice how you're exercising perhaps the part of the body that you've never exercised before. The adductor muscles, the muscles of the groin, are often overlooked because they're not particularly noticeable when people have them developed strong. And so sometimes people don't want them to become really big because they're going to make the legs look thicker. And so instead, they're not given any attention. And if the muscles don't receive any attention, they're not going to get much stronger. So we're doing this one more time. Lifting the legs, applying pressure on the elbows with the inner thighs, and then just relaxing and dropping the legs down. Notice how much further down your knees go now. You're not pushing them down. Please don't try to press them down because you will overstretch your gracilis very quickly, and that's going to give you a stretch reflex. We don't want stretch reflex. We want to create lengthen. So basically, we just let the muscles lengthen after they worked out. And notice how if you just drop your legs or straighten your legs in front of you, you will feel how they're much looser and there is a lot more energy flowing through the medial side of your thighs. Medial side of the thighs is a very important part of the body because that's where femoral artery and many other blood vessels and lymphatic vessels are located. And so if there is tension there, there's going to be energy blockage and also blockage or flow of blood and lymph. Obviously, the legs are not going to receive much nutrition. They're not going to be functional. And that's one of the many reasons why people's legs are not as strong as they could be. We want our legs to be as strong as they can be, so we just enjoy this sense of relaxation. Now, it's not the only thing we're going to do today in terms of strength. We're also going to work on abductors. The gracilis is the muscle that brings the legs closer to the center line. The abductors move legs away from the center line.
Yeah.
So once again, abductors move leg away. How do we exercise abductors? Well, we can use an opportunity to lie down on the side. And now we're going to lift the leg up. In this case, instead of the arms, what's providing the resistance is gravity. If your abductors are strong, feel free to straighten your leg. If they're not particularly strong, bend it at the knee. Obviously, the weight of the leg stays the same, but the body mechanics are such that you will have much less work to do your abductors if your leg is bent. If you straighten the leg, there's more work for the abductors to do. You can also make circular movements with the legs. So it's not straight up and down motion. You can making movements either clockwise or counterclockwise. You can try both. Which means we're engaging different strands of the gluteus minimus and gluteus medius muscles. The glutes here on the side of the thigh, on the side of the hip, are getting engaged, and you can probably feel how they're getting engaged, and that's exactly what we want. Whenever you're ready, just feel free to switch to the opposite side. Seems like a really relaxing, no big deal kind of exercise. Somebody asks you, what did you do today? And you'll be like, oh, I was lying down on the floor most of the time. So again, lifting the leg. For some reason you can't see my leg now. I'm gonna scoot a little bit. All right.
Those white pillows behind you would be better.
All right. So yeah. So I can see that some of you guys have pretty strong abductors. That's wonderful. You may also engage the leg in a circular motion. Try clockwise, try counterclockwise. Very good. A couple more revolutions. Those are some sexy socks, Nancy. Really hot
Yeah.
pink. All right. So it seems like no big deal. If you have never done this type of exercises before, you will feel how those muscles are getting worked up. Do you feel how they're getting some workout?
Yes.
Yes. Something that we want to feel, because if we don't feel it, it means we didn't do the right amount of exercise. Another thing that also, of course, is important is the rotation of the leg inside and out, inwardly and outwardly. As you can see, I'm doing the movements with my feet. So this is.
Are you slouching?
Am I slouching?
You haven't told people like how to sit.
I'm not slouching. You can see me in profile, you can tell it I'm not slouching.
Okay.
This is a very simple movement, and you can probably call it a windshield wiper exercise. The feet are moving as if they're windshield wipers. This is something that, again, just like the arms and shoulders have rotator cuff muscles, also do the legs. They are involved in exactly this type of activity. Very good. So simple and seemingly an assuming move. Now we're going to do something even more interesting. We're going to explore our flexibility by putting one leg out, keeping the other leg bent at the knee, and see how well you can reach for the toes. Most of us would be able to reach the toes. Whether or not you grab the toes, that's basically a matter of just making assessment. No judgment, just assessment. Now, we are going to keep trying to reach for the toes, but rock the leg, the entire leg, in exact same fashion as we have done with both legs a minute ago.
What about stretch reflex? Might guide people.
Yeah, so it's important not to stretch.
I
When
think you could
we
do here.
pull the muscle beyond the edge of the comfort zone, that's what we call stretching. And we don't want to stretch. We want to just move along the edge of the comfort zone. That's what this exercise is all about. We are creating, we are engaged in exploration of the edge of the comfort zone. And interestingly enough, flexibility improves. If you now try to reach for the toes, I bet it's going to be easier. So let's do the same on the other side. Just check how easy it is for you to reach for the toes, and then just simply rock the leg, turning it inwards and outwards. Seems like a very innocuous kind of maneuver, but it's going to have its effect. You can also synchronize these movements, of course, with breathing. So breathing out as you're rocking forward, breathing in as you're rocking backwards. If you're moving your right foot, then breathing out as you're rocking to the left, breathing in as you're rocking to the right. If you're rocking too fast, it will probably hyperventilate. So I invite you
Yeah.
to slow down. All right. Again, it seems like we didn't really do much in terms of flexibility improvement, but notice how much easier it is to reach for the toes now.
Yeah.
So a lot of practices that we study in our programs are counterintuitive, or seems like counterintuitive. They basically don't engage you in doing the same thing that everyone else does. Because if you want to get the same results everyone else gets, then you just do what everyone else does. But if you want to get different results, well, you need to do something different. So next thing we're going to do is we are going to engage hamstrings in some strength training. How are we going to do it? We are going to lie down, lifting the legs up above your head, above your torso, and use the heel of one foot against the sole of the other foot to press towards your body, and then push slightly away from the body. Press towards the body, move further away. Obviously, one hamstring is working against the opposite quad. The number of times obviously is going to depend on your strength of the hamstrings and quads. But generally speaking, after just a few, you will probably feel how your hamstrings are getting tired. Most people's hamstrings are weaker than their quads. Okay, as they're getting tired, just apply less pressure. Continue making the movement, but just apply less pressure with your heel on the opposite sole of the foot. And tone it down even further, maybe to 50% of full capacity. And even further down to 40, or even 30, or even 20%. And then just simply drop your legs and relax. How does it feel?
Good.
You notice the difference between the way that one leg feels versus the other?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's pretty surprising, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do the same on the opposite side. So once again, the opposite heel is pressing into the sole of the other foot.
I do it.
Pressing down and then pushing up. Pressing down and then pushing up. Obviously, you can synchronize it with your breathing. I don't have to tell you when to breathe in, when to breathe out. That's pretty obvious. Well, in case you're wondering what I'm doing with my breathing, breathing out when I'm down, breathing in when I lift the feet up. Out when I press the heel down, breathing out when I lift the feet up. And as we continue, slowly tone down the other exercise.
Yeah, I love this. It's like, I haven't ever done this before.
That's about 10. And drop it down to about 50% full capacity. And then 40, 30%, and 20%.
My goodness.
Legs. And feel what the legs feel now. I bet it's different from the way they felt just a few minutes ago.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, this is great exercise. Seems like nothing to it, but it all of a sudden gives a lot of workout to the legs that they deserve to receive. One of the things that we do is we use the muscles of one leg against the muscles of the other leg. Interestingly enough, one leg often is stronger than the other leg. Why?
Yeah.
Because we often have tendency to either favor one leg, or maybe one leg got injured and we're babying it.
Yeah.
Either way, we don't want to create imbalance like this. So we want to create greater balance of strength between the right and left legs. And that's why we use one leg to train the other. Whichever is stronger is not going to get much stronger because it's receiving resistance from a relatively weaker leg. However, the weaker leg will get stronger because it's receiving resistance from a relatively stronger counterpart. So that basically means that they will be able to catch up to each other in terms of strength. Now, of course, we can also use both legs at the same time, train both legs at the same time, engaging the muscles of the hamstrings against the quadriceps on each respective side. How do we do that? Well, we could do a bicycle exercise, like just doing like this. Or you can simply lie down on the floor and just drag your leg up and down the floor. Just like that. Hold down, and we'll lay down this way so you can see me a little.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure thing. So I'm just simply pulling one heel up and straightening the other leg. I'm using the quads of one leg against the hamstrings of the other leg. So this is not an easy move. It's the move imagining that you are going through resistance of some viscous substance like molasses, honey. And after doing this for a few minutes, I'm sure your legs will start getting tired.
Your low back.
My lower back stays more or less straight,
Okay,
neutral. No, I'm not really engaging my lower back. Now, you noticed me doing a simple crunch. So I was lying down, and then I was just sitting up. Now, this is, in itself is an exercise too. Lying down and sitting up. This is a great, yeah, just like that. Very good.
I need to remember to breathe. I always hold my breath.
Oh, yes. No holding the breath. You exhale as you come up. Inhale as you come down.
Do you want to show people who maybe can't be on the floor? You've got people who are just watching, like Jane. Like, is there anything that you could show that's from a
She's
chair?
injured.
Oh, okay, sorry.
A couple more of the scrunches will do a lot of good. Oh yeah, the kitty is going to help.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
Great. At some point, you will reach the tiredness of the abs, at which point you will feel like, oh, I can't do it anymore, like you will feel stuck. So you can lift your legs a little bit. So then it will look almost like a jackknife type of move.
Whoa, ouch. Yeah, don't.
It's okay.
Okay.
So what happens is that your abs will get tired. Your hip flexors also are involved. They also will get tired. And this is obviously the exercise for the muscles of the front. Muscles of the back deserve some strength training too. How do we do that? We'll just simply lie down on the stomach. And then lift let's start with one leg. Just lifting one leg at a time, either one leg or the other, as high as you can. The gravity will provide some resistance and you will feel it. This is a great exercise for the muscles of the butt, the glutes. Hope you don't mind getting the steel buns, or the buns of steel, as they call them. It also obviously gives exercise to the muscles of the lower back. And that's a great thing, so that you strengthen the muscles of the back in order to not hurt them if you happen to make any movements that potentially would strain them. It goes without saying that you breathe in sync with your movement. So when you lift your leg, you exhale, you bring it down, you inhale. Lift the leg, exhale, bring it down, inhale. And let's do a couple of more repetitions of this. Very good. Now the next thing we're going to do is we'll be lying down and we are going to grab a hold of the foot, flexing the leg at the knee. It can be on your side, it can be on your stomach, whichever works better for you. Why are we doing this? We're shortening the hamstrings. As we're shortening them, they will become more relaxed. And so when we let them go, they will become much more relaxed than before. All right, and now, if you just sit up and compare the feelings on one leg versus the other leg. We exercised both legs, but we held only one of them bent. And notice the difference.
Yeah.
Very good. Now, I bet the other leg wants that too. So go ahead and give that leg the opportunity to release tension in the hamstrings as well. Simply holding it like this. Seems like no big deal. Very easy move. It will actually improve your flexibility.
What if you're feeling a stretch in the quads?
Don't pull your foot too much so you don't stretch your quads. Nancy asked me, how do you not stretch your quads by doing this? And I simply said, don't pull the foot too much, not to overstretch your quads. So obviously the quads can get overstretched. We don't want that. Flexibility of the quads is important, but most people complain about flexibility of the hamstrings much more than quads. So far, we've worked mostly on our hips and the upper legs. How about the lower legs? Well, the muscles of lower legs are very important, and they often have tendency to become either overworked or sometimes develop spasms in some people's legs. They call it sometimes Charlie horse. I don't know what the deal is with the horse named Charlie, why they named it that way, but hey, that's, I guess, something happened to the horse at some point in history. What we're going to do is we're going to move the feet as if we are pressing a pedal, like you drive a car and there's a gas pedal and there's a brake pedal. Well, imagine that one foot is pressing on the gas pedal, the other one is pressing on the brake pedal, alternating. Gas, brakes. Gas, brakes. So you're engaging the muscles antagonists, the muscles that extend the foot, namely soleus and gastrocnemius, the muscles combined called calves in the back of the lower leg. The muscles that flex the ankle are mostly the muscles called shins, the tibialis anterior. And shins are usually a lot weaker than calves because they don't have a lot of opportunities to work out. That's why some people develop so-called shin splints. Shin splints is essentially the condition that is associated with the weak muscles overworking. Of course, that muscle is going to complain in the form of pain signals that sends to the central nervous system. That's not a sign of strength. That's a sign of weakness. So how do we mitigate shin splints and prevent them from ever happening? We have to train the shins. How do we train the shins? We just do the gas and brake pedal exercise. Seems like no big deal, but I'm sure that after just a few minutes of doing this, the shins will start getting tired. The calves are probably just fine, but the shins are probably going to feel like, oh my God, I'm getting really worked out. So let's make sure to tone down the intensity of this exercise. You can also make the movements that are more circular. So instead of windshield wiper kind of maneuver where you're mostly rotating the leg around the hip joint, now you're mostly engaging the ankles. And you're also engaging the muscles pronators and supinators of the ankles. You can make movements in the reverse if you want, as well as also tone down the intensity of the exercise. I'm quite certain that you will feel very soon, if not as you have not felt it yet, that those muscles of the lower legs that have not been receiving much workout will feel it. They will be like, oh my God, I have to do this. Well, yes, this is a simple workout. Seems like no big deal, just making movements with the feet, kind of like I'm doing it with my hands. We've done these movements with our hands, or we sometimes do this movements, or sometimes we extend and flex the fingers and the wrists. Well, those are similar movements with our feet. It's something that needs to be done in order for the legs to be stronger so that we have stability and balance whenever we walk, whenever we stand, whenever we do anything on our legs. How many people, especially as they grow older, feel unstable on their feet or feel afraid of falling? How do we mitigate that? We need to get our legs strong so that they support us, so that we don't feel afraid of falling. There's nothing to be afraid of if you feel confident on your feet. Of course, we can also work on stability and balance. there are certain principles of energy awareness, such as principle of stabilizations or principle of grounding, and we will explore them in our, why don't we just explore them now?
Okay.
So the principle of stabilization is very simple. If I want to be stable on my feet, and especially if I have more weight on one foot than the other, I want to bring the center line in alignment with the toes of the weight-bearing foot. The weight-bearing foot in this case may be carrying anything above 50%. So just 51% of the weight on one foot already makes it a weight-bearing foot. How do I stabilize myself? Well, let's see how we can bring both hands to the front of the stomach, right around the front of the navel, so that the fingertips are pointing precisely where the navel is pointing. And now we're going to turn the torso together with the hands so that the toes and the fingers are pointing in the same direction. The toes of the weight-bearing foot and the fingers are pointing in the same direction. I bet it's slightly different stance from what you're used to. If you're used to shifting the weight on one leg or the other leg, you may not be particularly cognizant of alignment of the center line with the toes of that weight-bearing foot. But it's actually a very effective way to stabilize. Like, Nancy, would you do me a favor and bring your center line in alignment with the toes of the left foot? Yeah. Now I try to push you, and you are extremely stable. Now let's turn just 5 degrees to the right. Yeah. Big difference, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Now let's bring the center line in alignment with the toes of the left foot again.
Pushing.
Yeah, I'm pushing. You're not going anywhere. Now let's turn the center line a little bit to the left, just 5
like
degrees.
that?
Yes.
So you remove my hips, not my torso.
Yeah.
Either way, yeah.
Yes. Isn't that interesting? Now, if it worked for you, I wonder if it's going to work for me. So I'm going to shift my weight to my left foot, but I'm not aligning the center line with the toes of my left foot.
Face the camera.
Okay, I'm going to face the camera. Okay, would you do me a favor and push me?
All right, so you're there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you're there, okay.
Yeah. Easy to push me over. Now, would you do me a favor and push again? And my toes and my fingertips are in alignment.
You're holding me up.
Yeah, I'm not easily pushed over. I'm not a pushover. Even my girlfriend can push me over. So what does it mean? It means that there is a tremendous level of stability associated with this alignment.
They can test themselves. You can be here and push yourself.
You can push yourself. You can push yourself over. Yeah.
You can find
Yeah.
for themselves. They don't have a partner.
So Lindsay just suggests that even if you don't have a practice partner who would test you, trying to push you, you can try to push yourself, literally pushing yourself into the stomach and feeling how it affects the stability.
Right, how much
This way
do you engage?
versus this way. Yeah,
Whoa.
I just pushed myself over.
Yeah. See?
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Thanks.
This is the principle of stabilization. Those of you who are familiar with ice skating or perhaps rollerblading know how you basically push away with the back foot to skate on the front foot. And then again, turn in the opposite direction, push away from the foot that becomes your back foot, and now skate on the opposite foot. How do ice skaters perform the amazing feats on ice? That's because they're supremely stable. They're balancing on a really thin blade of metal, but somehow they manage to maintain stability. I've worked with world-class ice skaters and actually had to teach one of them how to become more stable on her ice skates. Mind you, she was doing pirouettes in the air and landing, and she was supposed to be very stable, and she wasn't. She was literally like a little wobbly. And we started exploring what happens if you just simply align the navel with the skate. Align the navel with the skate, you can be much more stable. If you don't align, you become less stable. Very good. Yeah, just like that. This is an example of stability that comes as a result of using the principle of stabilization. I can be very stable standing on one foot as long as my navel is pointing in the direction of the toes of the weight-bearing foot. If I can do this standing on one foot, I can also rely on stability when moving. So when I take a step, for an instance, I want to be stable, but then I want to keep on moving. I have to trade stability for mobility. So I destabilize myself on purpose. I literally turn away from the toes of the foot, and by destabilizing myself, I give myself an opportunity to take another step. I stabilize myself temporarily because I need to be able to lift the opposite foot, and then I can destabilize myself to take another step. In other words, the series of steps is a series of stabilizing and destabilizing events. We literally use gravity to move us across the terrain as we walk. That's something that very few people think about when they walk, but that's exactly what we learn. We learn how to use gravity to provide us mobility, but we use our bone structure to get stability. Now, another thing about stability is that the distribution of weight on the different parts of the foot changes changes our stability. How would we become most stable? By bringing the center of mass on top of the center of the standing foot. So for example, if I want to be supremely stable on one foot, I want to distribute the weight on the center of that foot. Imagine a tall building, a skyscraper. Its center of mass needs to fall on the center of its footprint. If the center of mass of the building doesn't land on the center of the footprint of the building, how stable will that building be? It's not going to be very stable. Exactly. Very good, Marcia. So in other words, that's why we lose balance. We are not grounded. The principle of grounding, which is exactly what we call this principle of distributing weight on the center of the standing foot, is something that's not mystical. It's not magical. It's not some strange, unusual New Age concept. It's something that is really easy to embody, but it has profound implications. One of the implications of it is that the muscles of the legs can relax. When you distribute weight on the center of the foot, the bones of the legs carry the weight. If you shift the weight, for example, towards the heels, just to humor me, go ahead and try to shift the weight onto the heels and notice how it throws you off balance. Your muscles of the front of the legs and shins have to contract to keep you from falling over. Otherwise, you'll end up falling on your butt. Now, let's bring the weight onto the centers of the feet and notice how you become immediately more relaxed. If you bring the weight onto the toes or the balls of the feet, notice how that requires a lot of tension from the calves and hamstrings and the entire posterior chain. Yeah, it's like you're holding forth. And again, those tensions create energy blockages. Why do we call this principle a principle of grounding? It's because it allows us to become more grounded, energetically connected to the planet Earth that we live on by releasing the tensions in the muscles so that energy can circulate more freely between our body and the planet we stand on. So the principle of grounding is actually an energetic principle. It releases undue tensions in the legs, allowing you to become energetically connected to the ground. What happens when you become energetically connected to the ground? You allow the energy to circulate more freely. You get replenished with energy that you receive from Mother Earth. You may also release any unnecessary energies you no longer need. In other words, you create the circulation that provides you greater health and vitality. And who wouldn't want that? Now, there's a lot of benefits that we can get from learning these simple principles that I just shared, principle of stabilization and grounding, and very few cons, if any. So there's absolutely no reason not to practice them. I hope from this point on, you will be paying a lot more attention to the distribution of weight on your feet, where your center of mass is located, and also where your center line is pointing. And that is going to provide you much greater stability on your legs and generally greater balance in life. Because people who are wobbly on their feet often also prove to be not particularly balanced energetically, mentally, emotionally, and otherwise. People who are much more energetically balanced, they're more stable, not only physically, but also emotionally and in other respects. So I hope this all makes sense so far.
It's like a walking meditation.
It's a walking meditation, absolutely, yes. And there was a question? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions. I'm here to answer any questions, folks. So feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions and ask. Or comments or requests. Yes, Jane?
Hi, good afternoon or good morning. This is my favorite session so far. I absolutely love these exercises. Okay, one reason I held back is because my mid-lower back is still not very happy.
Oh.
I've been doing the resetting my pelvis, you know, with the butt out and the tailbone in and all that. But the question is, when the one thing you did, lying face down and raising the legs up, I'm just wondering, I think I'm actually, by doing that, I'm shortening the muscles in my spine, which
Correct.
I think is probably good for me, but I wasn't really sure. And then bringing it back down would be the opposite. So I'm wondering if that would be, should I hold off on doing that until
Oh,
I'm,
no, it's very good for you. Shortening the muscles of the back is exactly what allows them to become stronger.
okay.
As a matter of fact, you may even want to do something like this. When you lie down, you may try lifting both legs at the same time. Of course, you will exhale as you lift the legs, inhale as you bring them down. Notice how my torso also comes up. When I lift my legs, my torso comes up and comes down when I bring the legs down. It's a simple exercise that gives you an opportunity to engage those muscles of the back in strengthening. When they become stronger, then you can lengthen them. So after you've worked out and you gave them enough opportunity to lengthen, to shorten, then you can simply bring your legs up and you can even rock a little bit from side to side. Notice my head is not touching the floor. So I'm just gently lengthening the muscles of the back.
Oh, great. Those are the two moves that I was curious about whether I should be doing them or not. I was thinking, yeah, but I kind of held back until you confirmed it. Yeah, so that's good.
You're fully empowered to do that.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Great. Any other questions, folks? Yeah. Feel free to.
I was going to say that I was moving around a little bit because I'm in a different space today and the power kept tripping off because I've had some heaters. But yeah, it's a good session. I could feel areas that need to be woken up. So there's a lot of emphasis around which muscles are working. And
Yeah.
I wonder if you have any specific comments about reawakening sort of different parts of the nervous system. Specifically, like, I mean, there's all different things, of course, that could affect the nerves, including psychological factors, but having had them cut like 20 years ago across the abdomen, that's one effect. And then the more recent effect that I felt in my muscles and my nerves has been the after effects of shingles, which apparently can go on for about 6 months, post-herpetic neuralgia. And so it's not a lot of pain, but it's like, sometimes it's a little heat, sometimes it's a tickling, and so I do different things, different exercises, and even sort of massaging it and these kind of things. But I just thought I'd bring that up in case there's any particular tips or.
I think you're doing the right thing. Massaging and touching those parts of the body that have been afflicted, obviously, is the most direct and most immediate way to address them. When you are doing this kind of massaging, you may find that maybe some areas are more tender to touch or maybe sensitive. So maybe there is some degree of neuralgia. Or some areas may actually be on the other end of the spectrum, maybe not as able to perceive touch. So in other words, the nerves may be
numb spots. Yeah.
Become less activated. And so what we do then is we actually roll the skin, basically like a skin roll, like grabbing the skin and pulling it a little bit and just rolling it. So for example, if you have a lot of fat, obviously it's hard to roll, but if it's not too much fat, then you can actually roll the skin pretty much throughout the entire torso. Like cats and dogs, you know, if the cat or a dog is not too fat, it has the skin that you can kind of pull on it and move it all across the torso of the animal. Well, we are kind of like that too. We can move our skin, and that is a really effective way to bring those nerves in line. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think, and I've done that in the past. I think I've had like scar massage has been recommended, which I did for a long time, but I
For sure.
just good to continue.
Yes, absolutely. Don't stop. That part of your body has been traumatized, and obviously, if it still needs attention, absolutely give it attention that it needs.
Yeah, I mean, and oh, sorry, I'll pause.
Lama,
Yes.
I had just a quick question, and that is, my 4-year-old granddaughter shared her cold with me. And when he was talking about, the structure, when you cough, everything just contracts. And I'm thinking, what can I do to counter, what our body does naturally in a cough? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Basically, cough is an exhalation.
Yes.
So what we do that, we actually practice inhaling.
Okay.
And it's, again, like most things that I teach and practice are kind of paradoxical a little bit. What you do is you exhale fully to create vacuum inside of you until you can no longer exhale or hold the exhale. And then your body will naturally want to inhale. And that is probably going to be the deepest inhalation you've taken in a long time.
Right, with the coughing. Yes. Okay.
Continue doing this, basically practicing first exhaling breath, and then your body will be jumping into inhale. And then you allow the body to inhale. You don't inhale in any kind of artificial or contrived manner. You do what the body needs to do. And it's going to be, yeah, go ahead.
Should you inhale through the nose or the mouth? Does it matter?
If your nose is not puffed up, then I would certainly go through the nose.
Okay.
If you can, then obviously the second best choice would be through the mouth.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks
You're
for
welcome.
explaining that.
You're welcome. Great. Any other questions or comments, folks?
Yeah, Lama, I have one just really fast. I was wondering, standing, for example, standing meditation, we were exploring grounding and how it is easier to, if the body is relaxed, we are able to ground much better.
Yeah.
Is there a difference? Is it possible to do the same, for example, if we are in a position sitting?
Yes. Like for example, right now I'm sitting in a half lotus position.
Yes.
It actually is challenging to sit and relax in this position, because if I really relax and let go of tension, I will fall over backwards.
Mm.
Why? Is because the pelvis is tilted posteriorly. It's like it's really hard to maintain balance in this position without any tension in the hip flexors. Hip flexors basically keep me from falling over. So if there is tension in hip flexors and also the abs, because the lumbar spine also is tilted posteriorly, so I'm keeping myself up by holding tension on the abs. Well, obviously it affects my breathing. If there is any tension, there's going to be some restriction in breathing. And the central nervous system is busy sending signals of contraction to the muscles. So it's harder for the central nervous system to enter a relaxed meditative state of consciousness.
Mm.
What I always do is I do one of two things. I either lean back on something, for example, like here, there is an armchair. I'm just going to lean back. All of a sudden, I don't have to support myself with tension, so I can relax. Seems like a lazy way to do meditation, but actually it's much more effective because you're not tense, and that means that you can actually get into a deep meditative state a lot easier. Another option is what I call the thunderbolt or Seizure position. Simply kneeling.
Mm.
It's a very stable, very effective way to sit. You cannot sit like this for long because your legs are going to get numb, because you're going to cut circulation if you do it for too long. So I would definitely stick to a short meditation practices by sitting or kneeling like this, 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes maximum. But that's how we meditate in Qidao anyway. I always talk about making short meditations, but more often, instead of sitting for a long time, and one long sitting session. So basically, these are two most simple, most effective ways to deal with it.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. Well, I haven't heard Masha. Feel free to share what you have to share, because you always do.
Well, here's my first share. Wow, there is a floor in my house. Damn, it's been a long time since I've been that close to it. As usual, I discover that my left hip is the tightest, and doesn't matter what move I'm doing, whether I'm focusing right side or left side, my left side is what creates the first noticeable limitation of range of motion. It's that tight. If the ability to get up off the floor is some measure of longitude of life, okay, well, bye guys. Okay, because I'm out of here. It's like, it takes lots of other leverage for me to get up and down off the floor. And it is a combination of the flexibility in the hip or the looseness in the hips and strength. Now, if I have something to aid me with, like my arms at the gym, they have these apparatuses where there's like straps and I can hold on to them. I can do a squat all the way down to the bottom of the floor, and I can do a lot of push up with my legs, but until I get my hips above the 90% or 90-degree angle of my knee relationship, it's my arms doing most of the work. I mean, I could push, but I cannot push myself completely back upright. So I would say this was definitely the most challenging set of exercises. So my weakest point is the strength in my legs, although I think I have pretty good balance, you know, all things considered. And yeah, I surely don't enjoy having people watch me do that. So thus the camera turned the other direction. Yeah.
Well, we want you to live long and prosper. So the more you learn how to get back up from the floor without the help of the arms, the better. Simply like this, or in a corkscrew manner, like I was demonstrating before.
Yeah, now
Basically, oh, I'm just going off. Yeah, so the better you can get off the floor, the better quality of life is likely to be. No matter how long you live, hopefully you live very long, and you also will be enjoying better quality of life as a result of greater ability to move through full range of motion. So these are imperative practices that I would definitely encourage you to engage in.
Well, that's it. It's practice, practice, practice. And, you know, I made this observation a long time ago that as a child, I was always taller than everyone else around me. And the consequence was I didn't have to do as much work to reach because I was taller and longer. And so I did not stretch or use those muscles to the extreme that other people had to get the same result, right? And I can see that just that trailing through time of when you can compensate with something, with anything, okay, then something else is atrophying, something else is weakening in the process.
If you don't use it, you lose it. All right. Well, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you so much for bringing it up. That's definitely the task to take upon yourself. I would encourage you to do that. And I think all of us can benefit from it. Even though I can stand back up from sitting on the floor relatively quickly and easily, it doesn't mean that I shouldn't be practicing because I want to be able to do this when I'm 90. And that means that practice is something I need to be doing on a regular basis. I hope that you enjoyed it and will continue doing these exercises. They're really not difficult, not strenuous. You can make them as difficult or strenuous as you choose to, but something just needs to be done. So I look forward to seeing you next week. And also, if you care to join us for the meditation vigil, we're going to be meeting again in an hour for a meditation vigil dedicated to peace in Ukraine.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
you are welcome.
I have
Take care.
plenty of